Hello, everybody. This is obviously not Eddie speaking. This is me, Riley. I'm going to be giving this presentation from Eddie's accounts. We'll go ahead and blur my background for a second. There we go. And we'll just go ahead and kind of jump right on into the presentation. I think some more people will be kind of joining us a little bit later. That's all good. So let me go ahead and introduce myself. I've worked with all of you in some capacity at this point, and I've met a number of you. If I haven't met with you yet, I'll just give a little bit of background. I'm Riley. I'm the writing director here at Lemire College Consulting. A little bit of background. I'm from Oregon. I live here in Oregon. I went to school, however, over on the East Coast. I went to Boston College. I got my graduate degree in English literature while I was there. Taught a couple of first year writing courses. Those are writing courses for freshmen. And then since then, I've been working here at Lemire College Consulting. I've been the writing director here for about 3 years, I think, about 3 years. I've been the writing director here, and I'll work with all of you in some capacity over the next coming months. I look at all the Common App essays before we send them off and submit them. I look at most of the other essays as well before we send them off and submit them. And I'm kind of a middleman, coordinating between editors, between Eddie, between students, yourselves, and kind of getting things done a lot of times behind the scenes. So if we haven't had a chance to meet yet, obviously it's great to meet you, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you over the coming months. Just to give a little bit of background, so this is the first of our presentation series that we have decided to do. We have right now, we've committed to 3 of these. If everything goes well and people are interested in them, we might do some more in the future as well. Right now, students are working on their Common App essay. So the first 3 of these are going to be on the Common App essay, which is the big chunk of it. Possibly more planned in the future, as I was saying. This specific presentation is about sports itself and how to write a sports essay. Now, if you're not writing an essay about sports, I still think there's some decent information in here for you. You can't get too much information about the Common App and how to execute it. So feel free to stick around, listen to this presentation. The one we're going to have next week is going to be on how to write an accomplishment essay. What does that mean exactly? I would say any kind of essay that's about a student's greatest accomplishment, right? Any kind of essay that's about maybe founding a business or robotics or anything that you're really kind of proud of. There's certain ways to execute an essay like that. And then a little bit later, we're going to have a presentation just on leadership and how to write a Common App essay about leadership. So those are the 3 essays that we have planned so far. But like I was saying, we might have a couple more down the line. This is going to be about a 30-minute presentation, maybe 20 to 30-minute presentation. It won't go super long. We're going to have about 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers. If you want to go ahead and just drop any questions that you have in the chat function, then I'll go through at the end of this presentation and respond to what I can while live on air. This could be questions about anything I say during this presentation. It could be questions about the essay process, about other essays, really anything that has to do with essays. I'm kind of, as the writing director, I should have an answer for you. With that said, finally, one more thing to address. I am recording this presentation. So if somebody wasn't able to show up to this presentation, feel free to drop me a line and I'll be happy to send you a recording of this presentation. I can also send it to you if you just want the presentation on record. So with all of that said, I hope everyone's enjoying their summer months and the warm and the sunshine. I know in Oregon, it's finally getting warm, so I'm really enjoying that. And I got a couple of outdoor activities and a couple of camping trips planned, so I'm pretty excited for that. But we'll go ahead and stop wasting time and we'll jump right on in to our presentation today, which is how to write a sports essay. So the Common App is, just to give a little bit of background about it, you all know a little bit about the Common App essay, but it's a 650-word open-ended personal statement. It could be really about anything, like one of the essays that I sent you all to review, which was about potatoes. That's a great example. It could really be about anything. But there's a couple of things that we need with the Common App essay. We need to showcase your personality. We need to showcase how you changed and grown over a period of time. And we need to talk about a story from your high school years. So a lot of students write about sports in this Common App essay. And a lot of questions that I get when I'm meeting with students is, should you write a sports essay? It's actually kind of funny. I've had so many students be like, but I was told, or my friend told me, or my teacher told me to never write about sports in the Common App essay. And that's not really true. It's not a forbidden topic. There's just certain ways that we need to kind of execute this essay and certain things we need to look out for this essay. So if you've been playing basketball for 6 years and you watch every NBA Finals playoff game and basketball means a ton to you, then write an essay about basketball. That could totally work. But we just need to be aware of some kind of common pitfalls and common obstacles with this essay. So I think there's three pitfalls here. Number one, many students play sports in their high school. So a lot of students therefore write about sports in their Common App essay. So just be aware of that. If you're writing a soccer essay, there's a lot of other soccer essays out there. It could be a little bit more difficult to stand out. With that said, there's a really easy solution to that. Be unique in your essay. Avoid cliches. Take a unique storyline. Take a unique approach to your sports essay. I think the second common pitfall is that the culture of a lot of sports communities really emphasizes victory, determination, strength, and winning, right? Everybody likes to win games. So a lot of the sports essays tend to follow into a similar formula where it's all about success. It's all about how you used to not be as good as soccer, and then you tried really hard, and now you're really good at soccer. That is, unfortunately, it's an overused storyline. So you need to have a unique storyline. If you're writing a sports essay, we want to avoid cliche storylines and we want to avoid overused storylines. So we'll talk a little bit later about what's cliche, what's overused, and what we could use instead of that. And finally, another common problem with sports essays is that they tend to focus on the narrative of the sports or of the game instead of the student's personal growth. They get wrapped up in and involved in these details about like what the score was and what the play was and who won the winning shot. We don't want to do that. We want to really focus on you. The Common App essay, it's about you, it's about the student, it's about who they are, it's not about the sport itself. So if you feel like you can kind of check off all three of these boxes, and if you feel like sports has been an important part of you or the student's life, then go ahead and write a sports essay. But there's four things that we need to do to make sure that this is a successful sports essay. Before that, I'm going to go through these quotes. So I pulled these directly from admissions officers, right? These are the people reading the essays, making the decisions. Here's the first quote here. I tend to cringe when I read sports essays because usually they have long, boring descriptions of sweat and pain and events outside the writer. If they really focus on inner you and what you've learned about yourself in the process of sports, then they can work. But really dig inside and think about what message you want to share, right? So again, we want to avoid the kind of cliche of sweat and pain and getting better at the sport, and then all of a sudden now you're a superstar at the sport. We want to focus on something a little bit more unique. What is it about the sport that says something about you? What qualities, what values you want to emphasize to the admissions committee? The second admissions officer here says, as a reviewer, I simply don't care who wins a high school sports event. What I care about is what I can learn about you, the applicant, in your essay, and how you might fit into the community I've been tasked with curating. In most sports essays, I learned that you do the sport, that you have some struggle or challenge related to it, and that you're really invested in it. Maybe you got through the challenge or you got better at the sport, but that's it. So again, we want to focus this essay about you. Sports can be the way that we talk about yourself and talk about your journey and talk about your high school years, but the focus really should be on you. The sports is a way of getting us there. So how to pull this off? There's four things that I think every kind of Common App essay about sports needs to be aware of and to manage in some way. Number one, it needs to be unique. We want to avoid cliches. There's a lot of, like I was saying, a lot of students write essays about sports, so there's just a lot of cliche and overused storylines here. Number two, we need creative writing. This is true for all Common App essays. We need to show, don't tell us. We need creative writing. And then number three, we need to go beyond sports. I'll talk about what that means in a second. And then we need to highlight your values, right? What's your values? What's your perspective? What's your kind of characteristics? What will you bring to the university? So number one, be unique and avoid cliche storylines. So unfortunately, there's some really overused storylines. One of them is just refusing to quit. Like maybe you got injured and you persevered through it. Maybe you got to a level of soccer where you just couldn't compete and then you tried really hard and now you can't compete. Unfortunately, that's just an overused storyline. Instead of refusing to quit, I'd be more interested in hearing how you dealt with quitting or maybe how you dealt with defeat. right? Not everyone's going to win every single match that they're in. How did you deal with those defeats? How did you deal with those low points? Did that make you a better person, a stronger person? Another overused storyline is victory during a big game. It's obvious why we might kind of want to write about that, but I'd be interested in learning about the values that you got besides victory, besides winning that big game. Why was that important to you? Was it the capstone of your friendship that you have with your teammates? Was it proof of how far you've come as a leader and as a collaborator? What values have you gained besides just winning the game through sports? Making the final shot in the game. A lot of people really hate this one. Just throwing this out there. If you do make a final shot at the end of the game, that's awesome and something that you would want to write about. But unfortunately, it's just really cliche. So making the final shot in the end of the game, you might want to replace that with the time something went wrong. Like when's the time you missed the final shot? That might be interesting to talk about. How did you respond to missing that shot? Or maybe just a mundane game, right? What is the day-to-day ebb and flow like? Successes upon successes. Another kind of common storyline is I've been good at soccer. I trained to be better, and now I'm really good at soccer. Okay, tell me a little bit about adversity here, right? How did you respond to adversity? How did you respond to a time when you lost the game, and so forth? You got better at sport. That's another overused storyline. Maybe you realize something essential about yourself through the sport. So just getting better at the sport, that's fine. We can include that in the Common App. But outside of the sport, how did you grow over this time period? Did you become more empathetic? Did you become a better leader, etc.? The big game, right? The big game, the championship game, the playoff game. You might want to focus on that in your Common App essay. But I would challenge you to focus on moments outside of the spotlight. It's really easy to talk about that championship game, but what about the bus ride to the championship game? What about training camp? What about spaghetti dinner night with your teammates, right? What about getting your uniforms cleaned or going to the laundromat to get your uniforms cleaned? So those things that are outside of the spotlight, that's just a really easy way to make your essay unique. Not a lot of students write about spaghetti dinner night or about bus rides to and from games. That might be a way to really kind of make it stand out and make it not as cliche. And then your passion for the sport. A lot of students are passionate about basketball or martial arts or whatever sport they play. And that's great. We love to see that passion. But I'd be more interested in maybe hearing how you struggled with that sport. Maybe you fell out of love with that sport and then you learned to appreciate it a little bit better. Eddie has a story. He used to, not many of you may know this, but he used to play, I think, collegiate baseball at the college level. I think he was a pitcher and he used to love baseball. And then it became competitive and he was playing it in college and it became such a challenge that he started to hate it. He tells me the story that he started to hate the sport just because it was so challenging and he was criticizing himself and his pitching so much that he had to take a step back. And now, after years of not playing the sport, now he can appreciate it a little bit more. Have you gone through a similar story with your sport? Maybe you pushed yourself too hard at soccer. Maybe you practiced too much and you started to hate it. And then you have to take a step back and you can learn to appreciate the sport for the community that it brings or for some other aspect that you didn't really consider. So these are all ways we just want to avoid anything that's cliche here, anything that's a little bit overused. Remember that the admissions committee officers, they're reading dozens of essays a day. So if you feel like something might be overused, might be a little bit cliche, consider something out of left field, consider something unique. Number two, we need creative writing. This is true for all Common App essays, but we need you to drop us into the middle of these scenes and show us what's happening. So one important way to make your essay stand out about you is by focusing on a specific moment in time and inviting the reader to join you in that moment. Explain to the reader what it meant to be sitting in that locker room as you question the values of your players on the team or as you question the values of yourself. Ask your reader to sit in with you in your trainer's room as he diagnoses you with an injury. Bring the reader into the dinner table and involve them in your family's conversation about how sports are affecting your mental health, right? Show us what's going on. Drop the reader into the middle of the scene. What did the scene look like? What was going on? What was said? What did it sound like, right? How did it feel like? Using these vivid descriptions will take any essay, whether it's sports or not, and bring it to the next level. Here's a really good example of that. This was from years ago. This is just an essay about, I think it's a girl. Yeah, it's a girl who does martial arts. And it's just describing a fight that she had with another martial artist, right? Instead of going, 2 years ago, I had a competition or a bout. What is it? I had a match, right, with this other martial artist, and I won that match or I lost that match. That's telling it to us. Instead, show us what happened. Night had robbed the academy of its daylight, daytime colors. Yet there was comfort in the dim lights that cast shadow on our advances against the Bear Studio. Silhouettes of roundhouse kicks, spin crescent kicks, uppercuts, an occasional butterfly kick danced while we sparred. Right, super creative. Right, instead of just saying, I've been doing martial arts, I've been doing taekwondo for 3 years. We get images of roundhouse kicks and uppercuts and butterfly kicks. Right, we get all this action, we get all this movement. It's way more engaging. So we need a little bit of creative writing, no matter what the Common App essay is about, especially if it's for sports. Sports, it's really kind of fair game for creative writing, for showing rather than telling, because there's action going on, right? So if you're writing about soccer, maybe challenge yourself. What's a memorable moment for my soccer career? What's a really engaging moment or engaging story I like to tell my friends? Or basketball, maybe a really funny or interesting or engaging or stressful story that you have that can draw the reader in and make your Common App essay a little bit more unique. So number one, my one piece of advice here is to avoid cliches, avoid anything that's overused. Number two, we need that creative writing in the essay. Number three, the essay, it needs to go beyond just sports. Sports essays must go beyond the sport itself. Sports are simply the avenue for telling the reader what makes you unique. The essay is about you. It's not about the sport, right? So unless you're the next Messi or Mbappe or something, becoming a better soccer player isn't going to get you into the Ivy League, unfortunately. However, maybe soccer made you a better friend, or maybe soccer made you a better leader. And maybe telling that story could get you possibly into one of those schools. But just becoming better at soccer itself, that's not going to move the dial much, right? So make sure in your essays you're going beyond sports. Maybe you talk about sports and leadership, right? Do you have any type of leadership experience in sports? Um, you could be the team captain. It could also be unofficial leadership. Maybe you just help coordinate between the team captain and your friends. Maybe you help coordinate between the coach and your friends. Maybe you establish or set up, bonding nights or spaghetti dinner night or something. How has sports made you become a better leader? How has it refined your leadership skills? Sports and perfectionism. Since sports are so competitive, a lot of students struggle with that. They struggle with losing. What is your own journey with perfectionism? Have you had a journey with not being able to stand defeat and then learning to accept it as kind of a part of life, right? And then learning to kind of roll with the punches and roll with the lows. Sports and building a community. Sports is a way that people make friends, right? Do you have a ton of friends on your sports team? Is your sports team important to you? Are these friends important to you? How have they influenced your life, and how have you then influenced the community? How have you given back to this community or other communities? Some students do volunteering through sports, right? That's an example of giving back to the community. Sports and empathy. Sometimes sports allow you to see other people's perspective, right? Sometimes it allows you to humanize other people or to kind of understand what they're thinking. And then sometimes something out of left field, right? Like I don't know, sports, maybe pitching made you better at physics, right? If you're pitching, if you're a baseball pitcher, there's different types of ways you hold the ball, then the ball goes different ways. Maybe it made you better at physics, right? Maybe soccer made you better at computer science, right? Can you take a completely original and unexpected kind of comparison there? Either way, no matter what you do, we got to go beyond the sport itself. Again, Stanford doesn't care that you got better at soccer. Harvard doesn't care that you got better at basketball. But by becoming better, maybe you became more confident in yourself, right? Maybe you became more outspoken. Maybe you became more empathetic or a better friend, right? They would be interested in that story, but just the sport itself, not enough to kind of move the needle here. Finally, the final thing I think we need to do with these sports essays is to highlight your values. The Common App essay is ultimately about who you are as a person, who you are as a teammate, who you are as a family member or as a friend. It's not who you are as an athlete. So make sure you showcase your personality and your worldview in these essays. What values about yourself do you want to show to the college, right? Focus on positive qualities such as autonomy, growth, or curiosity, right? With autonomy, maybe sports have allowed you to gain a sense of independence or a sense of freedom. Maybe you've grown through the sport, not necessarily becoming better as a soccer player, but maybe by becoming better a soccer player, you've become better outside of the soccer pitch, right? Maybe you've become more outspoken in the classroom. Curiosity. Maybe you've tried a bunch of different sports and you tried a bunch of different positions, and this has influenced your curious, I don't know, worldview and allowed you to take risks. Vulnerability, right? Everyone loses in sports, right? Your team loses eventually. So maybe that's taught you not to be afraid of failure and not to be afraid of taking risks. Community. Like I was saying in the previous slide, maybe you support your teammates, maybe you support your team and you help create a supportive and inclusive community, right? Responsibility, maybe you believe that you owe something to the team, you owe something to those around you, and you want to help give back. So these are all really good values that we would like to see in any kind of sports essay. So just to kind of recap, the four things we're looking for with these sports essays: we want to be unique. We want to avoid any kind of cliches, right? We want to avoid overused storylines and focus on things that are a little bit unexpected or not as traditional. Number two, we need a creative writing in all Common App essays, but especially these essays. We want to show what's going on. Don't tell us what's going on. Number three, we need to go beyond the sport itself. Becoming better at soccer isn't going to get you into Stanford, but if you talk about soccer and leadership or soccer and community or soccer and perfectionism, then that would be an interesting essay they would be interested in reading. And then finally, we need to showcase some of your values here, right? What do you value as a person? Is it teamwork? Is it dedication? Is it determination? So make sure that you're kind of doing all these things or a couple of these things in your essays, and I'm sure they'll end up being very strong. We got a couple of samples here. We'll just kind of really briefly look at, and then in a couple of minutes, we'll take questions if you have them. So some samples here. This first essay, let me try to remember. So advanced females age 13, 14, please proceed staging area with your coach at the time. Okay, so this is, I think, a girl, yeah. So this was a student we had many years ago, and she was in martial art. I don't remember what martial art it is. A really interesting essay and a really interesting obstacle she had, which was that they didn't have a coach. And that's totally unique, right? Like, what kind of sport doesn't have a coach? But they didn't have a coach. And because of that, they couldn't officially enter a lot of tournaments because they didn't have a coach. So she took it on herself to become the coach. And then she talks about how she was kind of insecure with the whole coaching decision or becoming a coach, right? It got a lot of doubt from parents and I assume also fellow students. But then she kind of persevered through that and continued to be the coach. Really unique essay and a ton of really good things going on with this essay. Number one, super unique storyline. Having to deal with a lack of a coach or a coaching change is just not really a traditional thing you see in essays. Remember a couple years ago, we had a student whose tennis coach, like, I think got fired abruptly, and it was it kind of shook up the community a little bit. That a coaching change or a lack of a coach or coaching instability and how the team comes together as a team and as a community, I think that could be a really strong essay. It's unique. It's not an overused storyline, as we were talking about. Here we see how the essay goes beyond sports and into her community, right? We talk about how her community means a ton to her and how much the dojo has meant for her growing up, why she wants to give back to the gym, why she wants to give back to the dojo. So we see her sense of community and why this sport is important for her because of that. We go beyond sports and it becomes sports and community. It also becomes sports and leadership, right? She takes on that leadership role and actually becomes the coach and has to deal with things that coaches have to deal with, right? So we see coaching or sports and leadership there as well. And finally, we see her values. My confidence was my armor, deflecting their surly glances. Despite the attacks, I refused to give up, right? So we see her values: determination, confidence, independence. We get a really good sense of who she is as a student. I really like this essay, very strong essay. And then the second essay here, I think is maybe our favorite at LCC. I think Eddie showed you all this essay. We've been using this essay for a while. It's just so out of left field. And it's proof that a Common App essay could be about anything. This student wrote about how she's a potato, right? She's like a potato. Potatoes, they're reliable. They don't necessarily stand out, but they complement everything. They're reliable. They're always there for you. In her friend group, she was that person. She maybe wasn't the person always making the jokes, or who talked the most, but she was reliable and always kind of complimenting everyone. And that person that really valued the community. In volleyball, she was the setter, right? The setter isn't the person who makes the hits, right? Isn't the hitter and isn't the person doing the blocks. I think that the hitter and the blocks are kind of like what the spotlight usually is within volleyball. The setter, they make those plays, right? They get the balls to the ball to the hitter, right? They make those plays, kind of complementing everyone else. So really good essay here. I really like this essay. Instead of focusing on something a little bit cliche, right, like the big game or the big shot, like the final shot or the championship game or whatever, we open with a scene of her at lunch. You know, kind of a unique angle. What's lunch like with your team? What's lunch like with your teammates? Don't be afraid to break the mold in these sports essays. Showcase a little bit of creativity, a little bit of humor here. Um, Here's something unique. Instead of focusing on the star player or even what's that? Instead of focusing on the star player, even the team captain, the essay focuses on how the student works to support the entire team. We also see some of her values here: communication, teamwork, in the group, etc. So really good stuff here. Let's see. I'm gonna pull this up for a second. Anyway, yeah. So I sorry about that. Yeah, really good essay here. I really like the potato. The humor here is really good. It's really unique, kind of breaking the mold of a sports essay. The final essay here, it's a little bit more traditional, but I think it does a good job. It's a student talking about how she's a woman in, I think Taekwondo, no Muay Thai. How she's a woman in Muay Thai. So we see it's a little bit more traditional in terms of the setup here, but it's still a very strong essay. We got a really wonderful descriptive introduction. Fight, the referee exclaims. I take steps toward my opponent. She stands 5'5", sculpted with muscle. Scowling, she throws a fist combo, 2 punches and a leg. Right, so immediately we get a leg kicked at us, in the first 2 sentences. So don't be afraid to really be creative with these essays. This essay does a good job at that, to bring it to the next level. And then finally, we go beyond the sport itself, because we see a bit about her and being a woman in a male-dominated sport. She reflects on that a little bit. That said, I think it could have been a little bit more. It is just kind of like a sentence at the end. I would have been really interested in like talk more about that. Like talk about include a paragraph or couple paragraphs. What is it like to be a woman doing Muay Thai? I have no idea. That seems really interesting. I think that would have been a cool spot to elaborate a little. Either way, all three of these essays do a really good job, kind of being unique, breaking the mold, going beyond the sport itself, showing the students' values, being creative, and avoiding kind of cliche or overused storylines, which is, I think, the main thing to take away from this presentation. So I'd like to thank you all for stopping by. Now, if you all want to head out, feel free to go ahead and head out. If not, I'll go ahead and I think we have any questions in the chat. Oh, I don't see any questions. If you have any questions, I'm going to be hanging around here for a couple of minutes. Feel free to drop them in the chat. If you don't have any questions, then all right, go ahead and feel free to head out, or feel free to shoot me questions individually as well over email. I'll be happy to do that as well. And then finally, if you weren't able to make it, or if you want a copy of this presentation, we have recorded. So I'll go ahead and wait a couple minutes just to see if anyone has any questions. If not, within the next couple minutes, we'll go ahead and end the presentation. Okay, sweet. So seems like we don't have any questions. So that must mean that I did a really good job and I explained everything. Awesome. If you do have any questions, feel free to go ahead and email them to me individually. Again, let me know if you want recording of this presentation. I'll be happy to send that to you. And then we will be doing another presentation next week. They're always going to be on Wednesday at 4 p.m. I wanted something kind of consistent. The one next week will be about accomplishments and how to kind of navigate that. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll have a presentation on leadership, how to write about leadership essay. So please, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy the sunshine if you have it. Yeah, have a good rest of your day. Thank you.